Western governments and analysts don't have precise data on the current size of the Russian nuclear arsenal. That's because, since 2023, Moscow has been refusing to communicate with the West on that subject. According to an estimate from the US Congressional Research Service, there are 1,710 nuclear warheads deployed in Russia. They could be launched from a variety of vehicles, including ballistic missile submarines and strategic bombers. After Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, nuclear weapons resurfaced as a topic of mainstream public debate. Vladimir Putin has repeatedly threatened to use them in Ukraine in the event of an escalation by NATO. He also relocated some of the tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus in June of last year. According to the Russian nuclear doctrine, their use on the battlefield may be triggered under specific conditions. But some of them are rather open to interpretation. Russia could, for example, deploy tactical nuclear weapons when facing the threat of major military defeat. It could also press the nuclear button when the existence of an allied country is at risk. Significant evidence from US defense and political circles suggests that America has taken these declarations seriously. The Biden administration has been trapped between its willingness to help Kyiv and its fear of a possible Russian nuclear strike. Intelligence reports suggest that Moscow has been modernizing its dual-capable systems, seen as an efficient deterrent against the West. Yet again, nuclear blackmail seems to have done the job for Vladimir Putin.
Anytime a country that has nuclear weapons is involved in a conflict, there is the prospect that nuclear weapons could be used. Now, of course, in the past, the threshold for most countries with weapons has been an existential threat. And so what we have seen from Vladimir Putin since the very beginning of the war, he has, what we call rattled that nuclear saber, right? He has made vague threats that under certain circumstances he would consider using nuclear weapons. Those threats recently ratcheted up a notch with some changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine. Now, of course, these are threatening, I believe, because they've sort of lowered the threshold for nuclear use, but as some of my colleagues have made the point, there's declaratory policy and then there are actual decisions. And so far, I would say throughout the war, the United States and other countries have been monitoring very closely whether Russia has actually been moving forces into place. And on that score, I would say we've had a little more confidence that nuclear war is not imminent.
In October 2022, when there was the U.S. intelligence estimated the risk of Russian nuclear use at about 50%. And that's, let's be clear, it's nuclear use by Russia in Ukraine, so not against a NATO country, something that might trigger a nuclear response. So that situation already is outside of the pale of the nuclear doctrine of the Russian Federation, whether the old one or the one that has just been released. What seems to have influenced the situation in October was a very clear communication, at least from what we know, from the United States to the Russian authorities, that this would be a game changer in this war, that likely the United States would retaliate against Russian military assets on the Ukrainian territory and Ukrainian sovereign territory. I would not discount the significance of declared doctrine altogether. It is a significant document that communicates resolve, that communicates the set of circumstances. It's basically a documented deterrent threat to your adversary, but also, a communication to your domestic audiences.
It is actually certain that all countries with nuclear weapons are in the process of modernizing and expanding their arsenals. And I would specifically stress that we are currently in a situation that is driven by this era of confrontation and competition. So what we're seeing in terms of nuclear dynamics is that for example, arms control agreements between the United States and Russia are very quickly eroding. We have one remaining arms control agreement between the US and Russia that is set to expire in 2026 with no prospect of a follow-on agreement because of current dynamics, because of the war in Ukraine, which raises the risks that when this agreement expires, that both sides could actually upload their warheads and increase the number of nuclear weapons. For the first time in decades, we would be faced with a completely unconstrained nuclear environment with no limitations on the number and types of nuclear weapons.